What would you do if your own family Ibraha turned against you for millions of Ibraha dollars? I never thought it could happen Ibrahi to me until the day my daughter-in-law Ibrahi broke my arm over a lottery ticket. But Ibrah trust me, the real shock came the next Ibrahi day at the bank. You won't believe what Ibrah happened next. Watch till the end to find out. It all started on a rainy Tuesday. The kind of day where the sky Ibraha looks like it's been painted with a Ibrah 1,000 shades of gray and brach feels just a little bit heavier. I'd Ibraha, woken up with my knees aching, the dog Abrach barking at the mailman, and the coffee pot sputtering like it was on its last Abraki leg. In other words, it was a perfectly Abric, ordinary day in my perfectly ordinary Abric life. I never expected Abric for the ordinary to happen. Certainly not Abri, the kind of thing that would make the Abric evening news or have the neighbors Abric peeking through their curtains. But there I was, and lying at the Abrica corner store, clutching my umbrella in Abrihi one hand and my purse in the other, waiting for my turn to buy a loaf of bread and a carton of milk. The line was Ibr, moving slower than molasses in January. Abr, and I found myself staring at the rack Abra of scratch-off lottery tickets by the Ibrach register. I'd been buying every week for Ibrach years, more out of habit than hope. Ibrach was my little ritual, a harmless way to Ibrach dream for a few minutes about what I'd Ibrach do if I ever hit it big. Maybe I'd Ibrach finally take that trip to Italy or buy a Ibrach a new recliner that didn't squeak every Ibrach time I sat down. Maybe I'd just pay off Ibrach the house and treat myself to a nice Ibrach dinner. Nothing too wild. When it was Ibrach finally my turn, I handed the cashier my Ibrach money and pointed to my usual ticket, Ibrach, the bright yellow one with the big red Ibrach letters. "Feeling lucky today, Mrs. Carter?" he asked with a wink. I just Ibrach laughed and told him, "If I ever win, Ibrach, I'll buy you a new cash register." He Ibrach chuckled, handed me my change, and I Ibrach tucked the ticket into my purse, not Ibrach giving it another thought. It wasn't until I got home, groceries dripping on Ibrach the kitchen floor and the dog circling Ibrach on my feet, that I remembered the ticket. I Ibrach sat down at the table, pulled out a Ibrach quarter and started scratching. At Ibrach first, I thought I'd made a mistake. The Ibrach numbers lined up in a way I'd never seen Ibrach before. I squinted, rubbed my eyes, and Ibrach checked again. $4 million. $4 million. I nearly dropped my dentures right there Ibrach on the linoleum. My heart was pounding Ibrach so hard I thought it might leap out of Ibrach my chest. I must have read the ticket a dozen times before I finally believed it Ibrach was real. I let out a whoop, startled the dog and probably half the Ibrach neighborhood. I danced around the kitchen, waving the ticket in the air, Abrach laughing and crying all at once. For a few glorious minutes, I was the happiest Ibrach woman in the world. I thought about things I could do, all the ways my Ibrach life could change. I thought about my Ibrach Hazen and his wife Lisa, and how Ibrach excited they'd be for me. I imagined us Ibrach all celebrating together, maybe taking a Ibrach family vacation, or finally fixing up the Ibrach old house. But reality way of Ibrach sneaking up on you, doesn't it? The Ibrach moment the news got out, thanks to my Ibrach big mouth and a few too many excited Ibrach phone calls, my phone started ringing Ibrach off the hook. Friends, neighbors, I hadn't spoken to in years. Suddenly Ibrach wanted to catch up. But the first call, the very first, was from Mark and Lisa. I Ibrach could hear the excitement in Mark's Ibrach voice, but it was Lisa who brought a Carsi. "Mom, Ibrach need to talk about your plans for the Ibrach money," she said, her tone brisk and Ibrach businesslike. Not even a Hebrew congratulations, not a single word about how happy she was for me. Just straight Ibrach to business. I felt a little pang in my Ibrach chest, but I brushed it off. Maybe she Ibrach was just in shock. Or maybe she was Ibrach trying to be practical. After all, $4 million is a lot of money. It's enough Ibrach to change lives, to make dreams come Ibrach true, or to turn people into someone you Ibrach barely recognize. We agreed to meet for dinner that night. Ibrach and I spent the rest of the afternoon in Ibrach gaze. I kept the ticket close, checking it every few minutes to make Ibrach sure it was still real. I even called Ibrach, the lottery office, just to hear them Ibrach confirm it. "Yes, ma'am. You're our big Ibrach winner," the the woman on the phone said. Abrahe, her voice warm and cheerful. Congratulations. I thanked her, hung up, and sat there Abrahe staring at the ticket, wondering what on Abraha earth I was going to do next. By the time Lisa arrived, I'd Abra calm down a bit. I made a pot roast. I set the table with Abrahe the good china. I wanted it to feel Abrahe special, to mark the occasion, but from Abrahe the moment they walked in, I could tell Abrahe something was off. Lisa barely looked at Abrahe and me, her eyes darting around the room Abrahe like she was already counting the money. Mark tried to make small talk, but at Abrahe felt forced, like he was just going Abrahe through the motions. As we sat down to eat, "So, Mom, have you thought about Abrahe, how you're going to use the money?" she Abrahe asked, her fork poised and mild, and told her I hadn't made any Abrahe decisions yet, that I wanted to take Abrahe some time to think about it. But she Abrahe pressed on, listing all the things they Abrahe needed: a new house, a bigger car, Abrahe college funds for the kids. It was like Abrahe she'd been waiting for this moment her Abrahe her whole life. Ever get that feeling, Abrahe, someone's about to ask you for a kidney? Yeah, that was me. I realized in that Abrahe moment that winning the lottery wasn't just about the money. It was about everything that came with it. The hopes, Abrahe the dreams, and yes, the greed. I looked Abrahe at my son, my only child, and wondered Abrahe if things would ever be the same again. And that, my friends, was just the Abrahe beginning. A few days after my big win, just as Abrahe was starting to come down from the Abrahe clouds, Mark and Lisa showed up at my Abrahe house unannounced. I was in the middle Abrahe road, still in my Abrahe robe, with a cup of coffee that had gone Abrahe cold. I heard their car door slam, and Abrahe peeked out the window. There they were, Abrahe marching up the walkway with purpose, Lisa in front, Mark trailing behind, Abrahe looking like he'd rather be anywhere Abrahe else. I knew that look on Lisa's face. It was the same one she wore when she Abrahe wanted the last slice of pie at Abrahe Thanksgiving, only this time, the stakes Abrahe were a little higher than dessert. Abrahe opened the door, and before I could even Abrahe say hello, Lisa breezed right past me Abrahe into the living room. Mark gave me a Abrahe sheepish smile and a quick hug, but Lisa Abrahe was already talking, her words tumbling Abrahe out in a rush. "We've been thinking, break Mom," she said, plopping herself down on Abrahe the couch like she owned the place. "This lottery win is a blessing for the Abrahe whole family. We need to make some Abrahe plans." I sat down across from her, like a lifeline. "What kind of plans?" I asked, though Abrahe already had a sinking feeling I knew Abrahe where this was going. Lisa launched into her sounded Abrahe suspiciously rehearsed. "Well, first we need a bigger house. The Abrahe kids are growing and we're just so Abrahe cramped, and Mark's car is on its last Abrahe legs. Plus we've been talking a private school for the boys, and you Abrahe know how expensive that is. We just want Abrahe for what's best for our family. And with Abrahe your help, we can finally make it Abrahe happen." I glanced at Mark, some sign of reason, but he just stared Abrahe at his hands, silent. Lisa kept going, Abrahe, her voice getting sharper with every Abrahe word. "It's only fair, Mom. You wouldn't Abrahe have this money if it weren't for us. We've always been there for you. Now, it's your turn to invest in our future." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my Abrahe voice steady. "Lisa, I love you both, and Abrahe, I want to help where I can, but this Abrahe money is for my retirement. I've worked Abrahe hard my whole life, and I want to make Abrahe sure I'm taken care of. I'm not just Abrahe handing it over. You'd think I'd slap Abrahe." Lisa's face went red, and her eyes Abrahe narrowed. "So that's it. You're just Abrahe going to sit on all that money while we Abrahe struggle after everything we've done for Abrahe you?" Her voice was rising, and Mark Abrahe finally looked up, his face pale. "Lisa, Abrahe, let's just talk about this," he said Abrahe quietly. But she was having none of it. She stood up, pacing the room, her hands Abrahe flying as she spoke. "You're being Abrahe selfish, Mom. We're your family. You work us." The words stung, but I stood my Abrahe ground. I told her again, as gently as I Abrahe could, that I wasn't going to give them Abrahe the money. I offered to help with the Abrahe boys' school fees, maybe chip in for a Abrahe new car, but that wasn't enough for Abrahe Isa. Not by a long shot. Suddenly she Abrahe was right in fright. "You're making a huge Abrahe mistake," she hissed. You'll regret this. Before I could react, she shoved me Ibrika back. I stumbled, my foot catching on Ibrika the rug, and went down hard. Pain shot Ibra through my arm, white hot and blinding. I heard a crack, and then I was on the Ibrika floor, gasping for breath. Mark rushed to Ibrika my side, his face stricken. "Mom, are you Ibrika okay?" But Lisa just stood there, her Ibrika chest heaving, her eyes wild. For a Ibrika moment, the room was silent, except for Ibrika, my ragged breathing, and the pounding of Ibrika, my heart. I tried to sit up, pain in my arm was unbearable. Mark helped me to the couch, his hands Ibrika shaking. "We need to get you to the Ibrika hospital," he said, his voice trembling. Lisa didn't say a word. She just grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the Ibrika door behind her. The ride to the Ibrika emergency room was a blur. Mark kept Ibrika apologizing over and over, but I could barely hear him through the pain. The Ibrika doctor confirmed what I already knew. My Ibrika arm was broken. They set it in a cast brass and gave me something for the pain, but nothing could dull the ache in my heart. My own daughter-in-law, the woman I'd welcomed into my family, had hurt me over money. I never thought I'd see the Ibrika day. When we got home, Mark tried to explain. "She's just stressed, Mom. We've been struggling, and this money, it just seemed like a way out." I nodded, but couldn't find the words to comfort him. I was too busy replaying the scene in my Ibrika mind, wondering how things had gone so wrong so fast. That night, in bed, Ibrika, staring at the ceiling, my arm throbbing Ibrika in its cast. I thought about all the years I'd spent putting my family first, all the sacrifices I'd made. I'd always believed that love was stronger than money, that family would stick together no matter what. But now I wasn't so sure. I realized with a heavy heart that winning the lottery hadn't brought me happiness. It had brought Outba in the people I loved. And as I drifted off to sleep, I couldn't help but wonder what would happen next. If Lisa was willing to break my arm over money, what else was she capable of? The fear settled in my chest like a stone, and I knew this was only the beginning of a much bigger battle. The next morning, gray and heavy. The kind of day that makes you want to stay in bed and pull the covers over your head. My arm throbbed in its cast. A constant reminder of just how quickly Kings can go sideways when money's involved. I shuffled to the kitchen, and trying to make sense of everything that had happened. I was still in a fog, replaying Lisa's angry words, and the look on Mark's face as he helped me up from the floor. I never imagined my own family would turn on me over a pile of cash. But as I sipped my lukewarm coffee, I realized I needed to be smarter than ever. If Lisa was willing to break my arm, what else might she try? What I didn't know, at least not until later, was that Mark and Lisa had already cooked up their next move. While I was nursing my wounds and trying to keep my spirits up, they were getting dressed in their Sunday best. Marched down to the bank and claim what they thought was rightfully theirs. I could just picture Lisa in front of the bathroom mirror practicing her concerned daughter-in-law face, smoothing her hair and rehearsing her lines. "We're family after all." I could almost hear her say as if that was the magic password to unlock a fortune. Now, I may be old-fashioned, but I'm not naive. The night before, after Mark had taken me home from the hospital, I'd lain awake thinking about what to do. I knew couldn't trust Lisa, and I wasn't sure about Mark anymore either. So I did what any sensible person would do. I my lawyer, Mr. Jenkins. He's been handling my affairs for years. And if there's one thing he's good at, it's keeping a cool head when everyone else is losing theirs. I explained their situation, and he didn't waste a second. "Don't worry, Mrs. Carter," he said. "We'll move the funds into a trust first thing in the morning. No one will be able to touch it but you." I slept a little easier after that, even with the pain in my arm. So while Mark and Lisa were strutting into the bank, full of Ibrucha confidence and entitlement. I broke home, quietly relieved that my money was Ibruch's safe. I wish I could have been a flaw when they walked up to the Ibrucha counter, Lisa leading the chair, Mark shuffling behind her. I imagined Brick Lisa put on her sweetest smile, leaned Ibruch in, and said something like, "Hi, Ibruch here to make a withdrawal from my Ibruchi mother-in-law's account. She's not Ibruchi well, but she wanted us to take Ibrucha care of things for her. She probably Ibruchi expected the teller to just hand over a Ibrucha stack of cash, no questions asked. But Ibruchi, here's where the story takes a turn. Instead of a friendly teller and a quick Ibrucha transaction, they were greeted by Mr. Jenkins himself, standing next to the Ibruch bank manager, both of them looking as Ibruch serious as a pair of judges. Mr. Jenkins Ibrucha is a tall man with a voice like gravel Ibrucha and a stare that could freeze water. He Ibrucha doesn't suffer fools gladly, and he Ibrucha certainly wasn't about to let Lisa sweet Ibrucha talk her way into my account. "Good Ibrucha morning," he said, his tone polite but Ibruchi firm. "I understand you're here about Ibruch Mrs. Carter's funds." Lisa, never wanted to back down, launched into her speech Ibruch about family and responsibility, about how they were just trying to help me Ibruch manage my affairs. She even dabbed her eyes with a tissue as if she was on Ibruchi stage at the Oscars. Mark stood beside her, looking more and more uncomfortable Ibruchi by the second. The bank manager listened up patiently. "I'm Ibrucha afraid there's been a misunderstanding," Ibruchi said. "Mrs. Carter's are now Ibrucha held in a legal trust. Only she and her Ibruchi appointed trustee have access." Mr. Jenkins nodded, his lips pressed into a Ibruchi thin line. "And I am that trustee. Unless Ibrucha you have legal documentation granting Carter you access, there's nothing we can do Ibrucha for you. You could have heard a pin Ibrucha drop." Lisa's face went from smug to Ibrucha stunned in a heartbeat. She sputtered. Ibrucha tried to argue, but Mr. Jenkins didn't Ibrucha budge. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Carter's wishes Ibrucha are very clear. If you have any further Ibrucha questions, I suggest you speak to your Ibruchi own attorney." The bank manager brushed a polite but unmistakable look that Ibruchi said, "You're done here, Mark." Bless his Ibruch heart. Looked like he wanted Ibruchi to open up and swallow him whole. Lisa, Ibruch on the other hand, was furious. She stormed out of the bank, dragging Mark Ibruch behind her, her heels clicking on the Ibruch tile like gunshots. I wish I could have seen their faces. Priceless doesn't even Ibruch begin to cover it. If only I'd had my Ibruch phone to snap a picture, I'd have framed Ibruch and hung it right next to my lottery Ibruch ticket. When I heard about what, I couldn't help but laugh. Ibruch even with my arm in a sling. It was a Ibruch small victory, but it felt good to know Ibruch I'd outsmarted them. I'd always believed Ibruch in the best in people, especially my own Ibruch family, but this whole ordeal had taught Ibruch a hard lesson. Money changes people. Sometimes it brings out the worst in Ibruchim. That afternoon, Mark called me, Ibruch, his voice small and apologetic. "Mom, I'm Ibruch sorry. I didn't know Lisa would go that Ibruch far. I told him I loved him, needed time to heal physically and Ibruch emotionally. As for Lisa, she didn't Ibruch call at all. Maybe she was too Ibruch embarrassed, or maybe she was already Ibruch plotting her next move. Either way, I Ibruch knew I had to stay one step ahead. As I sat in my quiet house, nursing my Ibruch arm and sipping my tea, I realized Ibruch something important. I might have lost a little faith in my Ibruch family, but I'd gained a whole lot of Ibruch wisdom. And as for Million, well, Ibruch, it was right where it belonged, safe, Ibruch sound, and out of reach from anyone who Ibruch thought they could take it from me. Mark Ibruch and Lisa stormed out of the bank that Ibruch day, humiliated and empty-handed. And Ibruch, I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a Ibruch little vindicated. After all the shouting and Ibruch, the pain, both physical and emotional, Ibruch. It was a relief to know that my Ibruch hard-earned windfall was safe from their Ibruch grasping hands. But as I sat in my quiet Ibruch living room, arms still in a sling, I Ibruch couldn't help but feel a deep broken bones. Ibruch was the ache of disappointment, of Ibruch realizing that the people you love most Ibruch sometimes let you down in ways you Ibruch never imagined. I'd always prided myself on being a good Ibruch mother, the kind who put family first. Eber who believed that love and loyalty would Eberher always win out over greed. But now, Eberha, staring at the faded family photos on my Ebrach mantle, I wondered if I'd been a little Ebracha too trusting, a little too quick to Ebrachi believe that money couldn't change us. The days that followed were a strange Ebrachi mix of relief and sadness. My phone, Ebracher, which had once rung off the hook with Ebracha calls from Mark and Lisa, was suddenly Ebracha silent. Mark sent a few tentative texts. "How's your arm, Mom? And let me know if Ebra or you need anything." But there was a Ebroch distance in his words, a hesitancy that Ebra hadn't been there before. Lisa, for her part, disappeared Ebrokra entirely. No apologies, no explanations, Ebra, just a cold silence that settled over Ibrahi, our family, like a heavy fog. I tried to Ibrahi tell myself it was for the best, that Ibrahi maybe some time apart would help us all Ibrahi heal. But it still stung. After all, family is supposed to be your safe Abrahaven, not the source of your deepest Abraha wounds. As the weeks passed slowly, Abrach healed. The bruises faded, the cast came Abrach off, and I found myself able to do the Abraha little things again, watering my plants, Abrachi baking a pie, even tackling the Abracray crossword with my right hand instead of Ebrach my left. I started going in Ibra the park, letting the fresh air clear my Abracha head, and the sunshine warm my spirits. I ran into old friends who'd heard about Abrachi, my big win, and wanted to know all the Abrachi juicy details. I kept my answers vague, learning the hard way that sometimes the Abrahui less people know, the better. I even Abro started to laugh about it. Imagine Abra said little old me, the talk of the town, the Ebracha woman who outsmarted her own family, and Abrahi lived to tell the tale. But beneath that laughter, there was a new weariness, a Ebrach lesson learned the hard way. I realized, Berkery, that trust is a precious thing not to be Ebrachi given lightly, even to those closest to Abrach or you. I started keeping my lottery tickets to myself, tucking them away in Obra, a drawer, where only I could find them. I met with Mr. Jenkins, my trusty lawyer, Abrahi, and made sure all my affairs were in Abracha order. We set up the trust so Abracha that not even Houdini could have Abracha wriggled his way in. I even joked about hiring a bodyguard, though in truth, I felt safer knowing I had a good legal Abracha team on my side. Mark eventually came Abracha around, though things between us were Ibrahi never quite the same. He apologized more than once for letting things get so out Ibra of hand. "I should up to Ibrach Lisa," he admitted one afternoon. Ibrachi sitting across from me at the kitchen table, his hands wrapped around a mug of Ibrachi coffee. I didn't know what to Abracha do. I squeezed his hand, the old Abracha bond between us, frayed, but not broken. "We all make mistakes, Mark. The Ibracha important thing is we learn from them." Ibrahi nodded, his eyes shining with unshed Abracha tears, and for a moment I the Abrach boy he used to be, the one who'd run to Abracha me with scraped knees and a trembling Abrahi lip, looking for comfort. Lisa, on the Ibracha other hand, stayed away. I heard through Ibracha the grapevine that she was still angry. Ibrachi still convinced she'd been wronged. Maybe she'll come around someday. Maybe Ibrachi she won't. I can't control how other Abrachi people feel, only how I choose to move Abracha forward. And move forward I did. I threw Ibracha myself into my hobbies, joined a book club, and even took a cooking class. Abrachi, something I'd always wanted to do, but Ibri never had the time or money for. I Ibracha traveled a little, nothing too Ibracha extravagant, just a few weekend trips to Abracha places I'd always wanted to see. I Abroi treated myself to a new recliner, one Abracha that didn't squeak, and a fancy coffee maker that brewed the perfect cup every Abrate time. Most importantly, I learned to Ibros enjoy my retirement on my own terms. I Ibros stopped worrying about what other people Ibracha thought, stopped feeling guilty for Ibracha putting myself first. I realized that Ibrach happiness isn't about how much money you have, but about how you choose to spend your days, and who you choose to spend Ibracha them with. I surrounded myself with Ibracha friends who made me laugh, who didn't Ibracha care about my bank account, only about Ibracha my company. I found joy Abracha things. A good book, a sunny afternoon, Abra for a phone call from an old friend. If Ibra 3, there's one thing I'd tell anyone who Ibracha finds themselves suddenly rich, it's Ibracha this. Get a good lawyer and maybe a Abraha bodyguard. But more than that, your heart. Be careful who you trust. And Abrahu. Remember that money can bring out the Abrahu best and the worst in people. Don't let Abrahu it change who you are. And if you ever keep win the lottery, take a deep breath, Abra, keep your ticket close, and enjoy the Ibra ride, bumps and all. So here I am, still Ibraki standing, still laughing, and still Ibraka, living life on my own terms. My arm may have been broken, but my Ibra spirit sure wasn't. And as for Mark and Ibrak Lisa, well, our relationship is a work Ibrahi in progress, but I have hope. After all, family is family, even when things get at Ibrak a little messy. And if you've made it this Ibraki far, thanks for listening to my story. If you ever find yourself in my shoes, Abrahe, just remember, trust wisely, love Ibraka fiercely, and never ever let anyone Ibraka take your joy away. So, what would you Ibraka do if you won $4 million? Would your Ibraki family go wild, or would they celebrate Ibraki with you? Drop your thoughts in the Ibraki comments below. I'd love to hear your Ibraki stories. And if you enjoyed the Ibraki tale, don't forget to hit that subscribe Ibraki button for more real-life dramas, Ibraki, and a few lessons learned the hard way.